People often assume that the way to build influence is to climb the ladder of success, to rise above the crowd. Prominence and popularity is supposed to give you a platform to speak. But that's not what we see in Jesus. He does the exact opposite of that. He climbs down the ladder, so to speak. Philippians 2, 7-8, Paul says that he emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, and humbled himself to the point of death on a cross. We know that when Jesus taught his disciples, he taught them to live as servants, even when it meant washing someone's feet, as Jesus did for them in John 13. So we need to see that humbly meeting needs is essential to influencing people for Christ. We continue into Acts chapter 28, verses 1-6. Luke records a surprising account of Paul's servanthood after their shipwreck. He says, after we were brought safely through, we then learned that the island was called Malta. The native people showed us unusual kindness, for they kindled a fire and welcomed us all because it had begun to rain and was cold. It says, when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and put them on the fire, a viper came out because of the heat and fastened on his hand. When the native people saw the creature hanging from his hand, they said to one another, no doubt this man is a murderer. Though he's escaped from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live. He, however, shook off the creature into the fire and suffered no harm. They were waiting for him to swell up or suddenly fall down dead, but when they had waited a long time and saw no misfortune come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. Now, Malta is a small island around 57 miles south of the big island of Sicily that sits south of the boot tip of Italy. And as the story goes here, the locals seem pretty superstitious, but their views are probably not too different from other people at the time. They interpret this snake bite as evidence that Paul is evil. He's a murderer. And then they see him as a god. And both of those are missing the point, right? Because neither murderers or gods spend time going around gathering bundles of sticks to put on a fire, right? Paul's heart is to serve. And so in this case, the Lord miraculously protects him as he does so. And then as he enables Paul to serve in miraculous ways. We keep reading verses 7-9. It says, now in the neighborhood of that place were lands belonging to the chief man of the island named Publius, who received us and entertained us hospitably for 3 days. And it happened that the father of Publius was sick with fever and dysentery. And Paul visited him and prayed, and putting his hands on him, healed him. And when this had taken place, the rest of the people on the island who had diseases also came and were cured. It's interesting, Luke doesn't mention anything about Paul preaching the gospel here on Malta. But we know Paul. It would be surprising if he didn't do that. I'm sure he did. Tradition says that Publius becomes the first church leader in Malta. Luke, however, just continues to focus on deeds of service. But he shifts from Paul meeting needs to describing how Paul's needs are met. Verses 10-15. He says, they also honored us greatly, and when we were about to sail, they put on board whatever we needed. After 3 months, we set sail in a ship that had wintered in the island, a ship of Alexandria, with the twin gods as a figurehead. Putting in at Syracuse, we stayed there for 3 days, and from there we made a circuit and arrived at Rhegium. And after 1 day, a south wind sprang up, and on the second day we came to Puteoli. There we found brothers, and were invited to stay with them for 7 days. And so we came to Rome. And the brothers there, when they heard about us, came as far as the Forum of Appius and 3 taverns to meet us. On seeing them, Paul thanked God and took courage. And so Paul and his fellow travelers finished their journey by sailing up the west coast of the Italian peninsula to Puteoli near Naples, and then taking the Appian Way north to Rome by foot. And all along the way, they set off with assistance from the people of Malta. They're hosted by believers in Puteoli for a week. And then the believers in Rome come and meet him halfway to welcome him. And he's encouraged. And it just shows, I think, part of being a servant is accepting help from others, responding with humble gratitude. Meeting one another's needs builds those strong connections that we're talking about. And it's something that we can all do. But there's one more step that we can't neglect.